Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of Be Positive on etbrandequity.com. I'm your host, Ambi Parameswaran. So, we are delighted that we have a marketing veteran with us. Welcome, Vivek, for joining us. Vivek Sharma, CMO of Pidilite. Vivek, welcome for joining us.
Thank you, Ambi. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's a pleasure to be talking to you and all the audiences of ET Brand Equity.
Yeah, thank you. So, uh, this is a show about tracing your fabulous career journey across the terrains of FMCG, consumer durable, advertising, and now in a truly iconic company that is really changing the way many things are marketed. So I'm sure we all have a lot of things to learn from you. As you know, this show is about bringing in CMOs, talking to them about the challenges they faced, the hurdles they had to overcome in their career journey. So this is a show really about the career journey of successful CMOs, and we have a lot of young viewers, management students, as well as people in their early stage of the career who all look up to people like you who managed to build a fabulous career. So once again, Vivek, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Ambi. I'll be very happy to share my experiences. And if I go overboard, please tell me to stop.
No, I will, but I don't think you will ever go overboard. So, so before we get into your career, Vivek, I think it'll be good to know about your early childhood, schooling, where you were brought up. But I think your LinkedIn profile, curiously, is pretty sparse on your schooling and undergrad education. So I haven't prepared any smart questions for you.
No, let me talk a bit about that. So I spent my childhood schooling in Delhi NCR region. So I spent time between Delhi and Ghaziabad. So till my 10th, I did my ICSC from Ingram Institute, and then I moved to famous CBSC, and I moved across famous Kendriya Vidyalayas. So I passed out of Kendriya Vidyalaya Gold Market. And post that, it will surprise you, I have done my BTech from ISM Dhanbad, which is now called IIT Dhanbad.
School of Mines, yeah, School of
School of
Mines.
Mines.
I
School of
know. I know
Mines.
some friends of mine from IIT went there to do their
Yeah,
masters. Yeah,
yeah.
it's a very good school. It's supposed to be, at least for metallurgical engineers, it was a top class school those days.
In those days, it was world number sixth or seventh in mining, petroleum engineering, geology, and metallurgy. So I am a BTech in mining engineering. I was taught how to get valuables out of Mother Earth, including gold, diamond, gold, metals. But after that, I moved to, of course, IIM.
Okay, so Dhanbad, what got you to go to School of Mining Dhanbad? Was there a family connection? Someone in Coal
Not
India,
at all.
someone in SAIL or something like that?
No, see, in those days in 80s, the pressure from parents was always to do engineering. At least in our times, I can shamelessly now say, looking backwards, uh, if you're a guy, you have to do engineering, otherwise you were not good. So, and it may surprise you and your viewers that actually I got admission into St. Stephen's Delhi, and I was there for 1 year.
Sorry, you left St. Stephen's to go to
Yes.
Dhanbad.
So I was in St. Stephen's. I was in chemistry honors. I did 1 year, but I heard no end to my father telling me you must do engineering. So I wrote my entrance examinations, and I got into a couple of schools. One choice was Roorkee, one was Dhanbad. And I thought, just like perhaps a teenager, thinking that if I go to Roorkee, it will be close to Delhi. My father will land up very often. I wouldn't have any life left. So I chose Dhanbad. There was no other reason to choose Dhanbad. And true to my anticipation, he only came once to drop me, and 4 years he didn't land up. So I had a very good time. But in hindsight, I am very glad I went to ISM Dhanbad because I had some fabulous professors, fabulous students, and one learned some very fundamental lessons there.
So, since you said this, that my father never came to Dhanbad, I should narrate this story about a friend of mine. I will not name him. So he was in IIT Kanpur. and he had these supplementary courses to go through because he had failed two subjects. So he had to spend the summer on campus.
Right.
And so he told his father that, since he's a very good student, they've enrolled him for some extra classes and he can't come home during summer. And his poor father believed him. So how did MBA happen? Did you work after your school of mine, Dhanbad, or you went straight to?
No, I went straight because the aim, there were a couple of choices at the time. One choice was to write GRE, do MS. My professors in mining, especially my famous Professor Ghosh, was very keen that I go. I chose not to. Uh, and then I interviewed and I got a job in that time, the famous Computer Maintenance Corporation, CMC. And I thought I had a very good job. Then I looked at all the mining jobs as well. But 2 3 years into mining, and I said, um, I those days, we used to watch the serials called Khandan, Hum Log, and advertisement used to come and Siddharth Basu quiz time. And I said, I have to get into this kind of an industry in life. I can't be doing mining. So my seniors told me there is an exam called CAT. You write that CAT exam and you'll get into IIM. One of my seniors got into IIM Calcutta. We used to call him D. Kumar. He got into TAS from Calcutta. And he inspired me. And then we sat and wrote the CAT. And from ISM Dhanbad, I went straight to IIM Bangalore.
So it's very interesting. So you didn't work after.
I didn't work after engineering.
And you're saying, Khandan inspired you to get into marketing.
So those advertisements, those days for Godrej soaps and some stuff used to come, and those days that was hep stuff. When I'm looking back, it is very funny. But that kind of stuff attracted me, and I said, no, engineering and machinery, etc., is not for me. I must get into management and more so marketing. I want to do this ads creation. So I went to IIM.
So Vivek, I should tell you this, to set the context of how age separates us. As a product manager or group product manager for Get in Boots, my agency was HCA Thompson,
right?
And I got Khandan for sponsorship,
right?
But the budget was a little too big, so I backed out, and I think we sponsored a program called Karamchand.
Karamchand.
Very Perry Mason ripoff, which actually did very well for Strepsils, Golden, and Bernal. But I remember Khandan had come to us, and I think it was, if I'm not right, directed by Sridhar Shirsagar.
Sridhar Shirsagar.
Yeah, also was a dear friend, and he passed away very young. And it was a lovely program, and I'm not surprised that you got inspired to get into marketing watching that program. So then what happened in IIM Bangalore?
IIM Bangalore was great. Once you reach IIM, you realize that actually the bar gets raised. You are amongst best of the best. In engineering, I used to think that, I was in top 5, maybe. I was in the top 10 rankers. I used to think no end of myself. When I reached IIM, I realized that, I have my batchmates, colleagues from IIT Kanpur, IIT Madras, they're super bright, super intelligent. And I was among best of the best. So the bar gets raised, and I realized that to keep up with them only will make me better. So that's the first lesson of life I learned, that, you have to be amongst good people, and your own standard or your level goes up on its own. It's the environment. And I'm so thankful that I was among such bright batchmates. Now we still meet in hindsight. But truly, it is kind of a very unseen, I won't call it pressure. It's a positive pressure which pushes. And that's one thing I felt, and I believed it happened to me.
So any particular course you remember taking there?
Yeah, many courses. But I think the courses which really attracted me were diverse, but I was more interested in organizational behavior, I remember, and marketing course, of course. And international trade and finance used to attract me. I don't know why. International trade and corporate finance. But I had a professor called Professor S.K. Roy there. He's no more. But I used to love his classes because those are classes for me of self-discovery. He used to do these sessions called Hot Chair. We used to get feedback. And I used to love that kind of stuff. And I said, if this is so interesting, then I used to go to library and read these articles on consumer behavior. And I used to try and connect the two and say, oh, fantastic. And those days, Ambi, there used to be a magazine called A&M.
Yeah.
So I used to read that in library, and one of the magazines I saw on the cover, one article on Vinita Bali and Cadbury's. I read that, and I said, now this is the kind of dream job. I must do something around it. And I think it was a kind of a cosmic signal. And as you know, my first job from campus was in Cadbury.
Vinita Bali, of course, is a really inspirational character. She's a dear friend. And she was one of my early clients. In one of my books, I've written about her and how, as a young account executive, she literally treated me like a part of her marketing team. So I'm not surprised. So after IIM Bangalore, your first job was
At Cadbury's.
Cadbury's. Okay. In hardcore sales, marketing, what were you doing?
Obviously, like all management trainees, we were first given sales stint, and I was sent to Gujarat. And I remember I spent 6 months in old Ahmedabad, and then rest was in upcountry Ahmedabad. Staying in a small hotel in Surat, catching ST bus in the morning, and meeting my distributors. I did all that, and then I came back, and after a couple of years, I joined institutional sales and brand management. And we were not even called product managers then. I was a mere product executive. And I remember that time Cadbury's conceptualized its first institutional Diwali institutional sales campaign. And I was the boy in the front who did all running around. And there was so much of learning and so much of fun there. That was a very good experience. So that's how I started actually.
Who was the
Sales
head
and
of
institutional
marketing? Who was
sales.
the head of marketing then? Was Deepak Shori there or Deepak had
No,
moved?
head of marketing was Vinita Bali.
It's a Vinita. Okay.
Deepak Sethi was head of sales.
Deepak Sethi was there. And I think
Yeah. So
there was Deepak Shori.
Deepak Shori.
Yeah, who was marketing manager in 1980, 81.
80s.
And Vinita Bali was his product manager at that time.
So that's the time, and I look back and I think now we talk about this entrepreneurial culture. And I think companies like Cadbury's in those days existed without saying so. So I was told, you have to do this. So I went to Princess Street, got these metal trays, plastic trays, put together chocolates, hampers, costed them, tested them, got them packed then in a CNFA, and then devised with Arch Ether of Ogilvy, who was in direct marketing at that time, direct marketing campaign. We targeted these middle and small big companies. And ultimately, we racked up very decent sales. And this is truly like, entrepreneurial work. I was given just a clean slate and I had to do it. Simple.
So how many years did you spend in sales? 6 months, 1 year?
That was around 1.5 years at that time. And then after that, from time to time, I've spent time in sales.
But interesting, because a lot of young MBAs want to be in marketing. I want to be in marketing. I want to be in marketing. And I keep telling them, look, start in sales. Always spend at least a year or two in sales before you get into marketing, because that will kind of ground you, give you that earthing to know what you do. And I think what you said about getting a new project, obviously you were given a hot potato, right? I mean, it could have completely bombed.
It could have. It succeeded very well.
And you would have dead stock. Then you would have spent time opening up all those packs, taking out those Cadburys and selling them separately. Yeah. So Cadbury was what? A couple of years?
I spent actually total of 10 years in Cadbury's, of which first 3 years was in India. Then a couple of years I was sent to UK as a part of their accelerated development program, where I was a brand manager on their mints and bags range. To give you a context, they used to take 10 bright youngsters from all over the world and used to throw them in different culture, different country, in an assignment which was actually tough, and throw them at the deep end. So to give you the context, that time the chocolate market size in India was 10,000 tons. Cadbury's was 70% market share. I was sent to UK. My brands, both bags and mints, were total 25,000 tons, twice the size of Indian market. And I was a brand manager. And I said, oh my God, now this is scale. I have to do something, and I had to show results. There were cultural challenges, there were marketing challenges, there were market challenges. One had not seen in those days supermarket, and all the trade there was most of it was actually supermarkets, except for cash and carry, except for what is called CTN, chocolate, tobacco, and news agents. So I did that for a couple of years, and after 5 years, I came back and I joined Warner Lambert. which was the sugar confectionery business, which was later actually merged with Cadbury's.
Yeah, that is the halls and all
Halls,
that, right?
chiclets, and chlorides.
Yeah.
I did that for 5 years till 99, and Jan 2000 I joined Ogilvy.
So you spent what, 10 years in
10 years I spent in chocolates, confectionery, and snacking. I call it like that, in that
wow. Wow. So
FMCG.
you know exactly how a consumer buys a chocolate bar or a,
Absolutely.
and I remember, I think it was Chiclets had some fabulous ad campaigns. I don't know whether you were involved.
I will tell you, because we were creating that along with my boss Girish Rangan at that time.
Ah, so again, this is a small world indeed. Yeah, Girish and me were brand managers together in Boots.
He told
So
me, yes, yes.
we work together. Girish is a good guy. So I remember an amazing ad. I think
I
for
tell you, it
chocolate.
works.
It works.
It
Yeah,
works.
it works.
By
Yeah.
Mahesh Mathai, ad film by Mahesh Mathai. It that year it won all the awards. Idea of the year and Abbeys of the year, etc., etc. And a sales graph was like this. It was coming down and then it was going up. But you mentioned this sentence actually, so you must be knowing how chocolates are bought. I narrate an anecdote, which is very interesting, and that's what I now tell everyone who comes to me, all the youngsters. So in my first 1.5 years, I was in sales, and Deepak Sethi, our GM sales, he visited us in the market visit. We made presentation to him, sales growth, etc. So he said, so do you know how chocolates are bought? I said, of course I know. I go to this shop, this pawn shop, this grocer shop. I narrated him whatever I had observed. He said, no. For next 3 days, you will spend one day at a grocer, one day at a pawn shop, one day in a better shop, and you will sit behind and simply observe and watch. And I thought to myself, "Well, what is he telling me to do? What will I do? I'll get bored to death. This is such a useless idea," I thought. But trust me, after 3 days, I think what I observed when I came back to Cadbury House, Bombay, and I narrated and I wrote my observations, I could feel the change in myself, the confidence I got from just observing consumers. And I always now give this advice to everyone that you have to be at the front end just observing. I just sat there the whole day with those days, of course, there's no phones and videos, copy and pen, and simply noted everything. So yes,
Of course, it's very interesting. So if you were to think back and tell us maybe one or two or three things which struck you when you stood there just watching consumers buy.
What was a big revelation to me was how people refer to your brand and products, and how they refer to competition products. And then sometimes when youngsters come with mother, how they ask about chocolate differently. How when a youngster comes or a mother only comes, how they treat it differently. When a mother is buying Bonvita, she's not buying chocolate. Then I also observed how a shopkeeper is storing chocolates. How is he mixing things? How is he giving it? And I think these are some very, very valuable information one gets as one observes. The conversation between the consumer and the shopkeeper is very, very valuable conversation. But they will talk about ये 10 रुपए का है, ये 5 का है. Then shopkeeper will say, अच्छा ये ले जाइए, ये 2 ले जाइए. आप बड़ा ले जाएंगे तो खुल जाएगा, तो पिघल जाएगा. 2 ₹5 का ले जाएंगे 5 स्टार, तो आपको आसानी रहेगा बच्चे का. Then in those days they used to ask, इसको फ्रिज में रखना पड़ता है क्या? Then we used to say no, डेयरी मिल्क को रखना पड़ता है, इसको नहीं रखना पड़ता है. Now those were some fantastic insights.
Interesting.
And so nothing can replace your observation. I won't even call it market research. I don't even call it insighting. Just sit and observe. Observation of consumer is the first thing one must do.
Super. So after 10 years in marketing, you cross the Lakshman Rekha, go to advertising. Now, as you know, you worked in advertising. Every kid who joins advertising in client servicing, account planning, one day wants to be a brand manager.
Correct.
Either because they get trampled so badly and they want to run out of an ad agency, or they think, maybe rightly, that it is a client who's signing the check. So I want to be on the other side of the table. So how did you make the switch to the wrong side of the river?
Yes, a lot of people told me it was a wrong move or wrong. I was going to the wrong side. And I must confess now that I also had some apprehensions, but I tell you how it happened. So Warner Lambert was being merged with Cadbury's. And in that, I thought that, I have done so much. I must change industries. I was on lookout. And those days, there were three industries from where a lot of opportunities were emerging. There were tire, liquor, and dot-com. There was dot-com boom. And I met so many people in dot-com industries, and everybody was actually opening a portal in those days, as used to call it. And perhaps I didn't have this wisdom and maturity which I have now. So I used to go into interviews and ask them, how will you make revenue? What is the business model? And they used to think he's questioning us. He doesn't want a job. So I used to question their business models to come back. And I could never convince myself to actually join liquor for some reason. Not because I have any appreciations about stigma, but it's destructive in the sense. So, I was talking to that time to my erstwhile boss, Rajiv Bakshi. He said, Ranjan say, meet Ranjan Kapoor. I went to meet Ranjan Kapoor in Ogilvy. Then he said, meet Piyush. I met Piyush. And then Ranjan said, yeah, you must come to advertising. You'll get to experience multiple categories and industries. You will really, really get to see the creative side and the consumer side. And I thought, instead of joining .com, about which I'm not sure, or about other categories which don't excite me, yes, let me do. Honestly, I thought I'll do it for a couple of years. And I spent 5 years in Ogilvy, and I don't regret it at all. I had a fantastic time. And Ranjan was my boss, Piyush was my boss. So it was a move to the other side. I had apprehensions, but once after first 1 year, I must say there's discomfort in changing the sites and crossing the line. I still remember after a couple of months, don't laugh at me. So Ranjan came and said, Vivek, there's a pitch. So you have to go and now work on a pitch. I said, what is a pitch? I went to my friend Govind Pandey. I said, Govind, pitch. What do you do in a pitch? Yeah? Tell me. Kya karna hota hai? He said, this is what you have to do. I said, theek, kar lo. So I was so ignorant. I didn't know how creative people work. I don't know after the brief came how to get the work out. There were so many dynamics. But after 6 months, I really began to enjoy Ambi, and I never looked back, and I had fantastic time. I worked on all the marquee brands of Bombay branch, I used to call it, Unilever, Asian Paints, Cadbury's, ICICI, and Onida.
Any memorable run-ins with the creative guys? Because I know that in Ogilvy, unlike in FCB Ulka, the creative guys call the shots in Ogilvy. And so how did it pan out?
No, I didn't have run-ins, but I had very interesting experiences with creative people because Rajiv and Mahesh is sadly no more. They were my friends, they were my neighbors. Those days, Prasoon used to be there, Prasoon Joshi. Of course, some work Piyush used to do. Sonal Devral used to be there. So there were all these biggies were there. But and they used to think, look, here is a guy who's come from marketing and he gives strategy and gyan. So gradually I learned to sit with them and to what is called wrap ideas with them and to convert the client brief into creative brief. And trust me, and as to handle Unilever account called HUL those days. After 1.5 years, I went back and told them, my client, I say, your 6 to 8 briefs, they don't really help. I convert them into perhaps one para or one line. So my clients, Gopal Vittal, or there are many all known people. So I said, what I would like to start with you is a process is that after you give me the brief, after 2 weeks, I'll come and have a conversation. I'll simply, and they used to say, yes, why not? So Nitin Paranjpe used to be there. So we used to have these conversations, and I used to reduce the big marketing briefs, complex with all the table, data, this, that, into perhaps few lines. And that is what actually I should take forward creatively. So that is what really helped. So, but very, very interesting times I had. And I think I now advise, but no one takes this advice, that actually if you have to learn marketing, you must spend a couple of years in advertising. Whether you take a risk yourself and work there or you go on a secondment, but it teaches you some very invaluable lessons about inciting, creativity, handling people, because people management is critical part of advertising. And of course, a service industry. So, and it actually teaches you how to take risk and put your neck on the line, honestly. And because marketing is about minimizing risk, advertising also maximizes risk in many ways.
So I think what you say is extremely apt. And I teach IMC and I teach buyer behavior at SPGMR. and where we spend a whole session on writing that one-page brief, because as a client, you want to give market share, and you'll give 3-4 researches you've done. The creative guy is not interested in reading any of that stuff, right? So, and the classical role of the account planner and the client servicing is to condense that 20-page brief from the client to a one-page brief, nothing more than one page. And I think a well-written brief almost, and there is an article I wrote a long time back saying tight briefs are more comfortable. The pun on the word. Tight briefs are more comfortable. So you spend 5 years with some really great guys, fun guys, Govind Pandey, of course, Sonal Dabral, maybe Bobby Pawar was also around.
Bobby Pawar was there. I worked with Bobby when I was in Philips because he was my agency again.
Okay, so Bobby. Sagar
Mahabaleshwar, yes.
Of course, Kino and Rajiv is a fabulous, lovely guy.
You name anyone. I worked with all of them in 5 years.
It's a very good team. And of course, Madhukar must have been there.
Madhukar Sabnavis was a senior and he was the head of planning. Yeah, and I used to spend innumerable hours in his room discussing, inciting, planning. And I still remember how he started one South India study at that time. And that what gave us so many things. But I just want to underline and emphasize what you spoke about brief. And, Ambi, I have brought it back to marketing. Now, on the other side again, when in marketing in Philips or now in Pidilite, in Onida, I used to tell my marketing people that you don't show me a 6-page brief. I have now specified there are 3 or 4 things I look at in a brief. And I said, show me your value proposition in 2 lines, single-minded. Show me a from and to in think, feel, and do. And show me the insight. If you got these 3 right and connected, your brief is fine. Otherwise, not. Then don't show me those other 10 pages. So I think that learning done, I apply to the marketing side. And I think I find my agency partners are happy. We get better results. We get better campaigns. Now, even my team is very happy. In Pidilite, we have a huge team and brand category heads, product heads. And they are now applying this principle even to what we call contractor videos and contractor communication and getting better output. So and B2B, do it in B2B as well.
So 5 years at Ogilvy, then you went to the client side. I think Onida was your client?
Onida was my client. They pulled me to the other side over one meeting and at Gulu Michandani's home. 4-hour meeting, and then I went to the other side. I spent 3 years there in consumer durable industry. And I must say...
Did you take over from...
Chandra
Molly. So you took over from
Molly went to Cadbury's and I replaced him at Onida as the head of sales marketing.
Right? You left Cadbury, came to Ogilvy, went to Onida. He left Onida, went to Cadbury.
And we both again met in Pidilite.
Oh yeah, correct. You were together in Pidilite. Yeah. So how was the change from selling chewing gum and chocolate to now selling television?
It was quite high learning experience and high pressure. I tell you, marketing in consumer durables make you feel that marketing FMCG is like a walk in the park. It's a cakewalk. Because I was the head of sales, marketing and service. So complete end-to-end business when you look at consumer durables. It's a tough business because there's technological obsolescence, there is stock obsolescence. Those days prices fall every month. You have to manage profitability and pricing. You have to manage innovation. You have to manage technology. You have to manage big dealers who are very, very sharp businessmen among themselves. And operational pressure is very, very high. Consumer durable sales marketing is a 24/7 job, 7 days a week. It never ends. So I learned some valuable lessons in dealer management, operations. We used to do P&L every month because every month we used to change prices. And the kind of complexity which exists is amazing. So that industry teaches you in a couple of years, which you learned FMCG in perhaps 5 to 10 years. It's a high pressure and highly complex industry. Even today, I tell people that if you're working in mobile or consumer durables, you will know what pressure is. You will know what complexity is. And that's what I learned. And I think it did good, very good for me because I think I sharpened my commercial skills and sales skills far more in the consumer durable industry. So and that still helps me.
You worked with Onida, and at one time, we all thought Onida will continue to be a very powerful, big brand, right? Because between Onida, BPL, and Videocon, at one time they probably had 50-60% of the market share. Videocon is dead, BPL is dead, and
Only
only
does it.
Onida is still standing. So, how come, has Onida reached its full potential, or do you think they are still struggling against the Korean onslaught?
I think when Molly joined, he really took Onida from a to very high level. When and I took over in 3 years, I took it to really another level. And when I left, it was fourth or fifth largest player in the industry. It was a respectable player. TV, they had 10% market share. They were really making good progress in ACs and DVD players and washing machines and so on and so forth. But I think somewhere over the years, they seem to have meandered and lost their relevance with the changing consumer and the changing industries. And now it's mostly available in few states and mostly upcountry and small towns. So I think after 2010, uh, it failed to cement its relevance and it failed to really, I would say, leverage its strong brand equity. Oida had very strong brand equity. When I joined in 2008, Ambi, I relaunched that devil again. The devil was discontinued for some time and I brought it back again. It did wonders for the brand. But I don't know why they seem to meandered and they lost their way along the line. And I think now it's really too late because consumer has changed so much. The digital technology has moved far ahead, and you need to be moving fast. And we can talk about towards the end what are the three, four things we must do to keep pace. And this is a very good example of perhaps what to be mindful of when you manage brands and big business.
True, yeah. I mean, because look at Samsung. The way they've transitioned themselves from television and cheap television to high-end mobile phones and competing with Apple. So from Onida for a couple of years, then you went to
I went
Philips.
to Philips. Philips, I was there for 7 years. At that time, Philips Philips had three businesses: consumer durable electronics appliances, you know it, then lighting and healthcare. Healthcare is B2B, medical appliances, high-end medical appliances. So strategically, they were looking to really take the brand to next level, make it more consumer friendly, and they were appointing CMOs for all three businesses as an experiment in top 10 countries, which they wanted to focus. So they appointed, CMOs in countries like India, China, Brazil, etc. And I was the first CMO of across Philips, across all businesses in 2008. And we had some wonderful times and wonderful progress with Philips. And that is a good learning. That was my exposure to B2B marketing, B2B brands, and B2G, because at Philips, I was not only chief marketing officer, I was also government relations and public policy, as they call it, head and B2G sales when I left. So I learned my B2B and B2G marketing and sales over there. That was a fantastic experience. And of course, when you work in a global company like Philips, there is so much to learn from other countries and global colleagues. So
So by
fantastic.
the time you went to Philips, Philips had exited televisions, right?
No, no, we used to sell. I launched their highest end, what is called 12 by 1 cinema screen at Lakme Fashion Show in Bombay in 2009.
Oh,
So I marketed their TVs and their audio equipment. I think they were there till 2010 and 11 when they exited TV, and around 13 they exited audio also.
so
And
currently,
it was licensed to Videocon.
it was licensed. And currently they are mostly in
Currently,
health
they are in two
equipment.
businesses. They are in healthcare B2B and what is called personal care and consumer appliances. Lighting, they have exited. They
Oh,
have
lighting also they've exited.
they have exited. They have, it's a separate company now called Signify.
Oh,
So, like they are mostly focusing on healthcare, mostly worldwide. But in India, they are keeping appliances, but mostly they're in consumer now. But they're focusing on personal care, grooming business, personal grooming and healthcare business.
and I think they're following the same track as GE. I think GE exited durables and they're focusing on healthcare and all that.
Yeah.
Right? So okay. So let's go to your move from electronics to selling. What do you call home care adhesives, How did that happen? I think, was there a Ogilvy connection there, or was it that Chandramouli called you and you said,
No, Chandramouli joined Pidilite later. Actually, it was my personal life situation which was compelling me to look at options in India, because the options were to go outside India, and due to my personal life situation, I was not able to do that. You know, so I was looking at options, and I got a call from Pidilite, and I spoke to the HR head. I had a 1.5 hour conversation, and then I went and met our chairman Madhukar Pai Parekh in Bombay, and then I joined. Um but before I was given an offer, Madhukar Pai said, "You wait, you have to meet Bharat Puri. He's a board member, and he will come from Europe and interview you." So I went and met Bharat, and I still remember, in Taj. And soon after meeting, I joined, and 3 months later, Bharat also joined. I didn't know that was happening. So I can say Bharat and Madhukar Bhai Parekh are responsible for bringing me in this company. But I've been here for 7 years, and you rightly said, Pidilite redefines marketing in many ways, and marketing excellence is what it runs on. But it also runs very successfully on good sales, good what we call contractor management. And if I must say, after all these 3 decades of experience, also, if someone has to learn how to build iconic brand, they have to come to Pidilite to learn it. Uh, and this is a fantastic experience. And more than that, I mean, it's the culture which permeates the organization of marketing, frontline obsessions, brand building, contractor management. And there's a culture of treating your colleagues and partners as equals. I mean, the relationship between Pidilite and Ogilvy is legendary. And is our relationship with Madison, and with Madison also, is long time with Sam Balsara, and holds us in very good stead. I think this is a lesson for a lot of youngsters, that how, if we invest in long-term partnerships across the board, whether it's a media agency, creative agency, digital agency, any vendor, and if you make them understand your brand, if you make them understand the culture, they can also take your brand far, far ahead along with you. But you have to build that relationship. You have to invest your time in making them understand your industry, your brand. Once that understanding, if you invest that much of effort in doing that, and that is when magic happens.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head, Vivek, because a lot of companies, the youngsters, when they come in and they spend 2-3 years in sales and they come into marketing, the first thing they want to do is to change the campaign.
Change.
And when the agency says no, don't change the campaign, they say we'll change the agency. As a result, the relationship becomes one of adversarial, right? And the agency is put on the mat very often. The tragedy is, this is a downward spinning spiral. So you threaten the agency starts second guessing you, and they start doing stuff which they think you will like,
Yeah.
and not what will work for the brand, and then the downfall comes. And I appreciate, I was fortunate, several clients I worked on for 10 years and 20 years, and I used to, and the client, like you saying very rightly, the client used to say, you think this campaign will work for the brand? And I used to think 100 times, because if I say yes, they're going to run that campaign.
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, I'm destroying trust, and that is 100 times more valuable to me than anything else. So I said, yeah, I think this will work. Okay, they will run it. कुछ टेस्ट वेस्ट करना नहीं आप बोल रहे हो चलेगा चलाते हैं okay. And then you're sleepless night, because you put so much burden is put on you as a partner, that you try and tell your team, never recommend anything which you have even a slightest doubt will not work. So I think Pidilite Ogilvy relationship, or let's say Amul FC Bulka relationship, or the Tata Motors FC Bulka relationship, or the old Wipro FC Bulka relationship, or your relationship, Ogilvy's relationship with Asian Paints, are so strong and so well embedded because of this mutual trust between the client and the agency. So I think it's great that you echoing that. So
if I can add to what you just said, also, if you change agencies too often, one forgets that you lose learning in the process. Because learning is not only in PPTs and documents, it's in heads of people. What is called institutionalized learning. There are times here, I've been in Pidilite only for 7 years. But sometimes I go to Ogilvy, I ask Piyush, I ask Madhukar about Fevicol, and they know more than this brand Fevikwik than me, and we trust them. And you're so right. Actually, once you place your trust, you feel more sense of responsibility, and I think it's shared trust and shared responsibility. You share successes as well as failures. There's no fear of failure. So that is what leads to magic. Beside, of course, your analytic, digital, those hard things will come, they will go. There are people, knowledge, IQ, the hard part will be there. But people often ask, so how do you create this magical advertising on Fevicol? I said, it's not me, it's the team. And if I tell you how it is done, I will talk of all the soft thing, which you will say, Arey, he's talking
Yeah.
philosophy. But philosophy produces magic.
Yeah. So let me ask you this question I've asked all my other guests is that the importance of mentors. So during your career, you must have had several mentors who helped you get over problems, get over challenges, get over issues. So do you want to remember some of them and share what you remember you learned from them?
I have had so many mentors, so it will be unfair for me to name because if I forget one, then it will be really an affront to them. But I have had mentors and I have had people who have guided me throughout. And my mentors have not only been my bosses. Some of my mentors, you will not believe, are my colleagues who are now in different companies and we still talk and I take their advice. Um, but one more, in hindsight, thought I would like to place here for everyone is that your mentors can also be outside. There are times, I believe some of the best mentors and advice you actually get from people like your long term standing distributors, dealers, consumers. So you have to be open to everything. Mentors are people who actually show you a mirror, and that mirror can be anywhere. So one has to be open to these things. I'm often to ask this question, and I said, look, my mentors, my inspiration have been everyone. And I think for a marketer, I believe that my biggest mentor are what the people who show me the mirror are my customers and consumers. They often hand you failures. You invest so much in a campaign and they don't like it, it's gone. But in that lies a learning. If we invite that, that is the best.
Okay, any failure you remember?
Many. I mean, all of us have had failures. Um, a long time back, more than I think 25 years ago, I was a brand manager on Five Star.
Uh,
So we said, oh, we will launch what bite-size Five Star. That those days to be 10 rupees, 20 grams, and we said we'll launch a smaller version to increase affordability, rural penetration. So we launched a smaller version in that time, Andhra Pradesh, and I was test marketing it there. And after 4 months, I came back. I told Mr. Rajiv Bakshi, and I said we have to withdraw this. Now it was failing because we saw majority of consumers downgrading from a larger pack to a smaller pack. And we forgot to take that into account for categories which are actually that time chocolate was a bit of a luxury. If you give them easy options to downgrade, you're actually harming your business without giving them a compelling reason as to why you should do it. And I learned some of the biggest lessons there that when you actually manage a portfolio of brands, and I tell to brand managers that when you launch a new innovation, look at what impact it has on existing SKUs also. Look at the insights. Why are you launching it? And you have to look at all the sites and you have to take cannibalization into account. And that is my running theme in my innovation meetings, even today in Pidilite. And we look at it very, very closely. And I think that was one of the lessons, hard lessons I learned.
I think it's very interesting. I didn't know because I keep whenever I advise clients, I recommend that you look at small size packs because it helps the consumer try out a product and then upgrade onto a bigger pack. But if the what you said is right, if the brand is a luxury brand, then the consumer will downgrade and never upgrade, right?
Yeah, you have to treat in India what I call affordability packs carefully. You have to then focus on where they are distributed, what is the rationale for existence, how you will market them, and which categories you are in. It makes sense to launch an affordable shampoo pack because if they use the sachet 3 times, they are ultimately going to buy a bottle. But it's not necessary that if they buy a smaller size chocolate or a cake, they're necessarily going to buy a bigger pack. In fact, they may keep doing bite-sized consumption. Okay. But of course, see, for everything what we say in marketing, MB, I realize one thing, equal and opposite is also true. So we shouldn't postulate any theories on this, but at least that is my lesson. Um, and once in Noida, I did a TV campaign, and we were very sure we were doing a good ad, and it bombed, and I think took it off air after 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Uh, the lesson I learned there was no insight in the ad. Later we realized it was just a good looking ad, and and I think we did not pay in hindsight much attention to production values and investing in production and respecting what I called extended partners.
Hmm.
So one is that whenever my learning is that you conceive a campaign before you get down to execution, there's you must reflect. There has to be balance in marketing between reflection and action. And people don't often spend time in reflecting upon the brief, reflecting if there's an insight. And I think my formula is that you must spend two-thirds of your time reflecting and one-third of the time acting. And that's when you get things right in marketing. Second thing is, I spoke about agency partners. I spend respect for them, but there are extended partners like producers. You must also listen to them, give them enough budget, give them enough time to create these masterpieces you have conceived. You have taken 6 months to do strategy. You must give them enough time to make a good ad. In that instance, we didn't do that. And I think the result was not good. It was suboptimal and it led to what I called a loss of investment.
I suppose all of us who've been in marketing and advertising have enough shares of these kind of films or campaigns which you think are perfect. And then, you've done all the thinking and you put it on air and it bombs.
Yeah,
But how did you know that it wouldn't have worked if you ran it for another 2 months? You said you pulled it out in 3 weeks, right?
Yeah, because the feedback from dealers, and I quickly did some consumer groups in Bombay, and I got adverse feedback. But since we were in a hurry, we could not pre-test it. I have a rule that I myself go and attend the consumer groups research as much as possible. So I went to the groups in Bombay, and what I heard from consumers rather alarmed me because they were not playing back the strategy as we intended it to come out, and they couldn't get the reason. And then I realized that our communication doesn't have the insight as sharply as it should be.
Okay.
So there was no point modifying the TVC or investing it and changing the strategy. We had to go to drawing board and do it all over again. So sometimes I think one marketing lesson is that you have to admit your mistake, cut your losses early, and move on.
Yeah, I
If
know.
you
Yeah, I
hang
know.
on to a
Yeah.
strategy, you should be emotionally attached to what you create, and that's the biggest fallacy of marketing.
Yeah, but I've also had one or two cases uh, where the client almost pulled off the campaign. Then he kind of trusted my judgment and said, "Okay, we'll run it for another 4 weeks and see." And thank God, that's why I
Well,
believe God exists, right? I mean, anyone who's in advertising and marketing, better to believe God exists. So 4 weeks later, the song was very different. I mean, the campaign feedback from same thing, what you said, right? Dealers, sales guys, was very different, and the campaign went on to run for a long time. So, but anyway, now I think we are coming to the end of our conversation. So I just want you to think back, and I've got a few last bit of questions. But before that, uh, some last minute advice you want to give to young people who are in marketing, sales. You said you have thought of a few things you want to share. What are those 3, 4 things you want to tell them?
I think first thing young marketers should think of is insights and consumer. And I don't think enough time and effort is spent there insight. Inciting is not just about market research and doing market research through an agency. It is you yourself having a frontline obsession, going to dealers, going to consumers, spending time in their homes, spending time chatting with them. I think every strategy, every launch, every piece of communication should be based upon a very sharp insight. Insight will lead them to unfulfilled need gaps or communication gap. That's the first advice I'll give. The second would be they must not only have knowledge about the category, company, and about the techniques they have, digital techniques, but they must also have stereo knowledge. Marketing has evolved over last 2 decades, and marketing is just not about knowing about a category. I call it stereo knowledge. You must have stereo knowledge about the life of consumer, the life of dealers, And what is impinging, because what is government doing nowadays? So many regulatory changes throw your marketing strategy out of gear overnight. So you have to keep track of technology changes in digital marketing. What are digital publishers, how they're changing the algorithms, what are the changes in technology formulations, changing in regulations. Consumer activism has become far more. So marketing is no longer just about pure, I would call it, brand management or product management. It is about managing the whole environment and ecosystem. That's the second thing. Third thing is, and I think it is needless to say, I'll quickly cover it. They must keep pace with technology. As a 50-year-old, I am still doing it with help of youngsters. You must keep pace with technology and you must be comfortable with ambiguity, because ambiguity exists in marketing far more nowadays than it existed. And two last bits of for youngsters is that marketing is no longer a control function. It perhaps in 80s and 90s, marketing used to drive. They used to say marketing is the centerpiece and drives all parts of organization. I think that has changed a lot because the center of gravity has shifted from marketing from brand owners to brand owners are actually consumers. Brand owners are your dealers. Brand owners are your franchisee. Brand owners are people who are creating content about a brand. So I think they must think that marketing is actually about not controlling it, but actually influencing it. And as a marketeer, you are perhaps conducting an orchestra. You're not writing the music yourself. So I think that's, and the last but not the least, I tell all youngsters, treat marketing budgets of the money as if it is your own money, uh, and be mindful of how you spend it. Because I have often seen when you get big budgets, or I must say in startups, they have so much of money to spend. And I see the way it is being spent. It's spent quite heartlessly and mercilessly. It pains me as a marketeer. Perhaps I'm old-fashioned marketeer, but I believe it's not mindful way of spending. So every brand manager, every category person, every marketing head must treat marketing monies as their own money if it is their own company, and spend it mindfully. So I thought I'll share these things
No, I
which
think
come to the heart
I think it's
from
perfectly
me.
valid, and I tell people that just as there is ROI, there is what is called ROMI. What is return on marketing investment, and you need to keep asking that question. I spend a crore of rupees, what am I getting out of it? And the other big problem you talked about, and we can go on, is this whole dichotomy between what is called performance marketing and brand marketing in the digital space. It's complete. I mean, these two like yin and yang.
But let me add to what you just triggered a thought in my head. Also I tell people, yes, it is good to have performance marketing. We all must do it. We must measure everything in digital space, and we all have campaigns which generate leads and businesses. But don't get obsessed about those parameters, because at the end of the day, also measure your what I call mind measures or emotional measures. Because whether it is a B2B customers or a government customer, at the end of the day, they are experiencing your brand, experiencing your service, and it generates emotions. And I can give you umpteen examples from Fevicol over the last 3 years. We have done digital campaigns, but we have created positive feelings towards the brand, you know, and what I call conversations, what I call viral content. Now, you can't create virality, but you can create content which connects with people. So I think a balance of these hard things, digital techniques, performance marketing, yes, it has its own place. But I think some of the emotional measures is equally important. So a balance between what I call functional aspect and the digital aspect or the hard aspect of the brand management and the emotional aspect, that has to be managed, because unless you talk to the heart of consumer, you can never actually get brand love, and brand loves is much of a brand preference. It creates a kind of loyalty which will get you premium, which will get you profit pools. So one must invest in talking to heart of the brand and raise the level of brand communication from just functional communication, or what I call digital reminders to purchase at different points of the funnel, to a place where you talk to the emotions and you create brand love with consumers. So that's, I think you just triggered a thought and I just went on.
No, very, very valid. Very valid. Very, very valid. So let me come to the last few questions. Since you worked in
Sure.
uh, electronics for some time, I want to know, what is your favorite tech device?
Favorite tech device is iPhone, like most of us, because uh, it's so intuitive and easy to use. And you use it for everything, for entertainment, for controlling my appliances, my electronics at home, down to doing my Teams meeting. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, great. So now let's come to your favorite movie, OTT series, books, music.
Okay, movies. It's both. I love Hindi movies of 70s and 80s, and I love musical genres or comedy far more. So my favorite movies are movies like, Fukre, Chupke Chupke, Bawarchi, those kind of movies, Hera Fairy. I can watch them umpteen number of times because I believe it's very difficult to make a person smile. It's very difficult to make comedies, and I really cherish these movies. I'm also a science fiction buff. So my favorite OTT series is a German series called Dark or Black Mirror. And my favorite authors are also actually in the genre of short stories. I like three kind of. I like Guy de Maupassant. I like O. Henry. I like Somerset Maugham, Roald Dahl's short stories. I like science fiction, like everyone, Arthur C. Clarke, Asimov's. And third place, what I like is because I am a trekker and a high altitude trekker, and I've climbed some mountains. So I love adventure books like Into the Void, Into Thin Air by John Crocker, and I read a lot of books on Everest. If you read on Everest, Everest is not just a mountain; it's a philosophy.
So have you climbed the Everest or is it on your bucket list?
No, no, I have climbed. I've gone up to the base camp Everest, and there's a mountain in front of base camp called Kala Patthar, which is around 20,000 feet. I have done that. Uh, so those are the kind of books I
When
like.
is Everest going to happen? Yeah.
Everest is different. Everest it's a vast subject. But I've read all the books. Climbing Everest is very, very different. People climb for different reasons, but it's something you have to pursue for 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. But you've done the base camp.
I've done the base camp in Kala Patthar, both.
Oh, lovely, lovely. So good. So before we leave, Vivek, any last one-line advice to young marketers watching this? One line.
You must come to marketing if you love consumers and you have the passion for marketing. And marketing is actually 70-80% hard work and work on the front lines. And only 20% is the glamorous in conference rooms advertising creation.
Good. Yeah. Thank you. So thank you, Vivek. That was a great conversation. So viewers, as you saw, Vivek is a inside out marketing professional from Dhanbad School of Mines to IIM Bangalore and then to Cadbury, Warner Lambert, Cadbury both in India and UK, Warner Lambert, then to Ogilvy and then to Onida, Philips and now Pidilite. He is kind of traversed the whole spectrum of product categories. So he's interacted with consumers like housewives to consumers like carpenters. So amazing journey. So Vivek, thank you very much for joining us on this show. And this is Ambi Parameswaran signing off on Be Positive on etbrandequity.com. Thank you for joining us and thank you, Vivek, for joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambi.